Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we're going to be looking at Hex Commander Fantasy Heroes. This is a strategy game that I found. It was released a few weeks ago, 22nd of December 2017, and it is free to play. So I thought let's have a look at this and give you guys my opinions. It's not got very many reviews and they're quite mixed. So I thought, why not? Let's throw my 2 cents in. It was originally an iPhone game, I believe. And as you can judge from the title, Hex Commander, it is a hex-based strategy game, which is actually one of my favourite sort of designs for strategy games. I don't know why, a hex is just way better than a square. So the overall premise of this game, you have a home base, you upgrade it over time with money that you earn in-game from completing scenarios. You also get another currency, which you can also buy for real money. Which is very, reminiscent, I guess, of iPhone games. You're used to in-app purchases all the time. And this does seem to be a pretty direct port from the iPhone game itself. I don't think much has gone into changing it between the phone and Steam. In terms of how far I got when playing it, when I do these reviews, I play a game for at least a minimum of an hour just to get a really good feel. I feel like if you don't like a game after an hour, that's a pretty good amount of time to spend, and if you don't like a game, you're probably not going to like the game too much further into that, unless I really think there might be something coming up. I tend to cut it off at an hour, and in this case it was that case. I played 5 scenario missions and I unlocked 4 of the 5 playable units that I'm aware of at least, and you do that just by sort of unlocking the buildings to play them, so like the barracks and like the wizard tower, things like that. And I did get to see quite a few of the enemy units, so that was actually quite good as well. In terms of the map design, I played on 4 different maps, I think. I remember there being at least 3 different ones, and I think the 4th one was pretty much the same map, but they added a tower to it. So that was pretty nice. There is a lot of variation in that. So now on to the important bit, the positives and the negatives. There's not too much to say about this game. In terms of positives, the maps for what was originally a mobile game and has now been ported to PC are actually really nice. They're graphically quite nice. They're not that bad to play. I've played a lot worse games. The design of them's pretty good. Every scenario I played, although the objective of it didn't change too much, like you just had to capture someone or save someone or kill everyone, the actual map design was a bit different every time. There was castles, there was churches, there was things like that. There was different levels you could play on, different heights, and that was quite refreshing. That was quite nice, having all the different maps. Some was snowy, some was rainy. So that I do have to give a big props to them for. The other thing that was pretty good is, I wouldn't say that the AI was very well coded, but I would say that the unit variation was very nice. It wasn't particularly hard to play for at least the few levels that I played, but I did notice it ramped up in skill pretty quickly. So I would imagine if you played it for a few more scenarios, you'd find it actually got quite hard. The AI wasn't great, but the unit stats were quite well balanced, and I started to come up against the enemy having some quite strong units which actually did some decent damage and were fairly tanky. And I suppose that's maybe where upgrading your home base would sort of play into part, and recruiting more units for your battlefield, things like that. So there's definitely, honestly, for a mobile game, there's definitely some sort of longevity to it. I will be honest and say you're probably going to be better off getting this actually on your mobile. If anything, I'd say this is just some sick promotion for them to get it on mobile, because I feel like this would be a really, really strong mobile game. So my best take from this actually is that you've probably found yourself quite a decent mobile game to get. But in terms of a Windows game, as I'll let you know in a second with all these negatives, I don't feel like they've done enough to make it a Windows game. So the negatives, as mentioned previously, I don't think they did much to transfer it from phone. There's no controls. There's no WASD movement. It's all done by dragging the screen, which I found to be really frustrating as someone who's played a lot of strategy games. That's just kind of like your go-to. So it was quite frustrating having that just non-existent. In terms of sound for the game, I thought it was pretty poop. The effects and stuff were alright, but the actual music I thought was just quite annoying. But that's personal preference, so I don't really include that too much. The fluidity of it was pretty rough as well. I felt like the clicking sometimes was a bit off, and the way the units moved, I was never sure quite how many squares they could move and things like that. It actually took me a few games to work out how many tiles each unit could move, because I felt like it was so, one turn you could move 6 tiles, the next turn you could move 10, and then one turn later you could move 3, and I was like, what? It took me a bit of time to work it out, because there's no in-depth tutorial or stats, because the UI's pretty basic for the phone. So I think that once again comes down to it just being pretty sloppily done at the end. No UI sort of updates or anything like that, which is unfortunate. So for me, this is the sort of game-breaking thing that made it unplayable past an hour for me, was how slow the game was. And you'll notice this if you pick this up, which I'd say is definitely worth giving it a go. You know, it might be your kind of thing. But it was so slow. The units could move, if there wasn't a road, the units could move like 2 or 3 tiles at a time. And the AI would move 2 or 3 tiles as well, or sometimes not even move at all, just for no reason. And that wouldn't be an issue normally, but in this game they actually did a really good job with making the maps quite big, which would be fine if you had a big army, but you have like 6 units that have 50 tiles to walk over and can only move 2 tiles at a time. So honestly, I spent like 10 turns just moving units. Other little things like single bridges that only one unit can go over at a time was so frustrating. I'd have to line all of my units up and to just push them in a line over a bridge, and that would take so long to do. And the movement on the roads is double the movement anywhere else, which is pretty much okay. But when there's just one road, I mean, my biggest flaw is it just took so long to move anywhere. And I've got no problems with like long movement and things like that, but it's got to feel worth it in the end. And it doesn't, like for me personally, I just didn't find any worth in the movement system in this. It seemed so long-winded and unnecessary to have units travel so far in the battlefield for no reason. You don't really get any strategic advantage by moving your units to a flank or anything like that. None of that really plays a part in this game. It's not that in depth, so having all of the distance to walk just meant the game was just dragging on for much longer than it needed to. So that was my like really big like, oh, I kind of want to just stop playing this right now. Overall, I would say get this on your phone. Get it on your phone and give it a go. I imagine it will be good for when you're at the bus stop if you like some strategy games. But for your computer, I'd say please stick away from it. Feel free to give it a go. It is free to play. There is some buying elements to it, but honestly, I wouldn't ever think of doing it anyway. But even if I did, it actually wasn't that bad, the unlocking of it. Every scenario, you got one real life money coin, and that would basically unlock you an upgrade or a new building. So that was actually all right. I didn't think the progression on that was too bad. In fact, I think the progression was quite good. So overall thoughts on this: get yourself this on the App Store. That's probably your best bet. The progression was good. The gameplay was slow and quite boring for bits of it. And that's about it, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Please let me know if there's any games you want me to look at next. And thank you all for watching. Peace.